can definitely build a business while traveling. I can speak to that, but it is really, really challenging to focus on very, very fast growth because you're constantly all over the place and your focus is changing from one thing to the next. You got a lot of logistics to deal with. You got to plan things, you got to pack things, unpack things. You got to worry about transport. You got to worry about bookings. Unless, you're at a level where you have enough money to do all these things and have somebody do it for you. I'm talking specifically about traveling for leisure. So if you are going around, obviously for a bunch of business trips and meeting with clients, that's one thing. But in this case, I'm generally talking about going to see friends, family, new places, whatever. Over the last 2.5 years, I have been building a software company. And over those last 2.5 years, I have also been traveling a lot. I have not spent 2 months in one city consecutively over the course of those 2 years. And now I'm settling down in London. And I want to speak a little bit on basically how you can work and travel. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? Obviously benefits, you get to see loads of places. But I want to speak a little bit on the difficulty of it. People think it's the dream when the reality is there's a lot of costs coming with traveling that are beyond money. And I'm talking about costs to your time, to your focus, to your energy. These things will stop you from building your business nearly as fast as you'd like it. The major benefits of traveling is you see more places in the world. And in general, this makes you, I think, a wiser person. You become more worldly. So you understand more about how the world works, how people interact, different cultures. And then I think this makes you a more interesting person as a whole. And so when you go and have conversations, when you're out at dinners, when you're out at events, you have more stories to tell. And that is worthwhile. That's the upside. The drawbacks of that is that you also don't build roots as deeply in one place as you maybe could. So if you spend 2 years in one city drilling down, just getting to know everybody there, and you really, really focus, you will get pretty far in meeting everybody that you can around the place and things like that. So that can go pretty well if you can focus and meet people in your area, things like that. Changing your environment will inevitably disrupt your routine. Any routine that you have around work, around focus, will be completely disrupted when you travel, when you mix up your environment completely. You can get used to things, you can get somewhat good at balancing work and routine, but it will never be as good as somebody who's staying in one place always at the same time in front of their laptop. That stability, that routine is very, very hard to get when traveling. At the end of the day, it's just you have to choose a little bit between kind of personal growth in terms of perspective and worldliness or the business growth. To have both, it's always a trade-off. So you will always sacrifice a little bit of one to have a little bit more of the other. But I will caveat this by saying I think growing in terms of your perspectives and things like that is extraordinarily worthwhile as well. Because being able to have more interesting conversations can take you to more interesting places, and it might just make the difference. And I think overall it makes you richer as a person, richer in depth of personality. And I think people underestimate the value of that. Nowadays, I think there's this trend where basically people think being rich is a personality. People are far too attached to money, and unfortunately, the reality is money will not give you a better personality. It does not do that. If you want to become a more interesting person, go and do more interesting things. It's not by just making more money that you get more interesting. I think that's just the one little caveat that I would add. And this video is definitely, if you want to focus on business growth, then unfortunately, I think traveling is probably not the best option. But at the end of the day, that alone, it will not maybe give you the perspectives that you could otherwise get. Anyway, life is also worth enjoying sometimes, right? All the money in the world that you can make is worth nothing if you don't actually use it for something. And so I do actually think that it's also worthwhile to, when your business spits out a little bit of cash, if you're in that place where you want to explore and want to learn a little bit more about the world, then use it to travel, right? Sitting in your bank account and making more money, those numbers are worthless. They're worth nothing unless you spend them. It's a bit of a balance. I think it's a very personal decision, but I thought I'd share just because I've done it a lot, and I can speak to my experience on that, and I think some other founders, friends of mine as well. If you're somebody who's considering traveling a bunch and trying to build a business, it's worth keeping this stuff in mind. We'll leave it at that.